I think that's a great place to start in general. And I mean, this is something that we've talked about for years. And really the key is just maintaining, right? And so you don't want to wait until your house is completely on fire before you start doing stuff. So little things over time make a big difference. And particularly in a case like yours is as we've noticed little things over the last couple of years, we kind of do fine tunes and tweaks. And it also depends on kind of what direction you're going with style wise. And so this is where you have to kind of figure out exactly what the vision is, and not just the vision of how I want to look like right now, but really where do I see myself in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years? Because some of the stuff that you do now can burn that bridge. And so as far as I'm concerned, Sculptra, a little Botox, a little bit of filler here and there. I've cut back on the filler actually, just because my face is pretty slim now. And the filler was starting to show a little bit too much. Now, I'm pretty vain, as you know.
He's the vainest of everybody. Sorry, I'm putting you on blast.
I'm bad. And I mean, I'm just like doing constant like consults, and I'm always looking at people. And so I'm always on camera, and I'm looking at the patient, but then I'm also looking at myself as I'm talking about the patient. It's bad.
I always say, by the way, that when Instagram stories came out, that is when a lot of people's perceptions of themselves changed, including myself, because I had never seen what I looked like in motion. I saw what I looked like in photos and in the mirror. And then when I saw how my face looked when I was talking and everything, I was like, oh, this is not matching.
Talking, lighting, certain angles, like all these things come into play, particularly like what the angle of the lens is. We've talked about this before where, the selfie lens has a slight fish angle to it. So we saw a huge change in the trend for rhinoplasty, particularly once stories became a big thing. But yeah, you have to be aware of kind of what it is that you look like and what it is that you do. And so, so for me, like the filler just stopped working. I started getting a little bit puffy, started getting a little bit of that filler face. And so I dissolved a lot of the filler that I had, but I still needed a little bit of that just volume, and soft volume looked better on me. I didn't like how full I was getting. So I did Sculptra, and I love the Sculptra. It does very, very well. A lot of surgeons are anti-Sculptra. They'll tell you a bunch of, can I say shit? I can say shit. Okay. About Sculptra.
Can I say?
Yeah. We're gonna go in. We're just gonna go lazy river. Just lazy rivering it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the Sculptra itself. People are concerned about how it generates collagen. It creates almost like a Velcro-like tendency on the tissue when you're dissecting it during surgery. Who cares? Just take your time and do it. You get paid enough money to do it right. It's not a big deal. But certainly if you do it too early on, it can be a problem. But if you wait enough time and you let the tissue heal, it's not a big issue. And I love it. It improves the quality of the skin, helps a little bit with volumizing. So yeah, that's my secret. Arielle's done a couple more things than just a little bit of Sculptra here and there.
I see. We're going tit for tat.
No, listen, I'm not putting you on the spot.
No, most people know. And that picture that this person was referring to that I posted today of you and I was from the end of 2021. We met end of 2019. I did a lip lift with you January 2020. And then 2021, pre-Pandini, 2021, I did fat transfer with you. And so this photo from the end of that year, I feel like the fat had still not really gone down so much. Or I was in that very like fluctuaty phase.
Like that roller coaster phase at the beginning where pancake
where I was
like
threatening, remember?
Threatening bodily harm. Yeah, I remember that.
So people ask about fat transfer all the time, and I actually wasn't going to talk about it, but I'll answer the question here because they ask about my experience, and I've done plenty podcasts about it. But for what to expect, I'll just talk about how I experienced it with you, which is that I came out of that transfer. So you took it a little bit from my stomach, right? And you injected it in my cheeks, under eyes, temples, if I remember correctly. And you come out of that quite swollen, very swollen, to the point where I was like, there's a divorce in my very near future.
This is fact. I have the message. It was 2 days in.
Yeah. 2 days in, I'm like, you don't understand. Because I don't think I told him that I was going to do it or something. I was with a friend. Anyway, then 2 days thereafter, what did I say? All the fat is gone.
All the fat is gone.
This is medical malpractice.
Like, what's happening? And then you landed back in LA. You had some avocado fish tacos or something.
Yeah, I went to Cabo.
Went to Cabo. And then you're like, oh my God, my face is huge.
Yeah.
What's happening?
It puffed back up.
It
Fluctuates a
So
lot.
it's interesting because even the experience that you had 4 years ago is very different than the experience patients have now. So techniques have changed in the last couple of years, partly because of you. And so... So what ended up happening was, historically, if you take a look at the literature, there's a couple ways of purifying. You're laughing, but this is true. So there's a couple ways of really kind of purifying the fat. So the old school way of doing it was you would take the fat out, you'd actually put it on a gauze, you'd roll it back and forth on a gauze, almost like, think of like gelato, where they take the spoon and kind of roll the gelato, roll the gelato back and forth, and that gets rid of some of the oils in the water out of the fat. You take that fat, then put it in, inject it. Not the best, but it's a very old school way of doing it. The yield was okay. Downside is you're taking something sterile and you're putting it on an open table. Even though the contents on the table are sterile, I mean, anything can land on it. So the rate of infection was pretty high. We started centrifuging. What's the advantage of centrifuging, this technique that you had? This became the gold standard for 10 plus years. All the studies compared to centrifuge. You spin the fat around, it separates the fluids, right? So all the heavy stuff goes to the bottom, all the really light stuff goes up top. And so the fat kind of sits in the middle and floats a little bit. So you get rid of the water, you get rid of the oils, which is really, really nice. Now, the downside of that is that you're still not getting rid of absolutely everything that's within that fat. So nowadays what we're using is we're using the pure graft method. And so what the pure graft method does is you take that fat and then you run it through 2 different filters. The most important filter is a 70 nanometer filter. So before I start putting you guys to sleep, what that means is that the filter is just small enough that the fat cells don't go through, but everything else goes through. So you're getting true pure fat. So I've actually put a little bit of some content on there out there the last couple months about it, where you take your regular fat and let's say it's 50 cc's of fat once it's spun down and purified. You run it through the pure graft, it cuts down to about 25 or 20 cc's. So you're cutting that volume in half. So in a case like yours, let's say hypothetically, we injected 13 cc's of fat in each cheek and under eye area. Now we're only doing about 6.5. And we're getting the same amount of yield, if not better, because it's pure fat cells. We're decreasing the amount of volume that you're putting in. So your fluctuation is much lower, because even though you're puffy, you're going to go down a little bit. So now it's a little bit more stable. It stays put a lot better and your yield is higher. So it lasts you a little bit longer. The advantage too is that you're really concentrating all the really rich adipocyte-derived regenerative cells, what some people call stem cells, into that packed cell. So you're getting a lot of the better stuff into each syringe. So you get less swelling, lasts longer, better yield. So you don't quite have that crash out at 2 days or 3 days out after surgery from it. And so we see people bounce back a little bit better. It lasts longer, so they're feeling much better, much quicker.
How much of it lasts compared to the other?
So it's much
or does
better.
it just depend on the person?
Well, obviously it depends on the person, depends on the health. I mean, we've joked about this, how a certain someone's fat looked like croqueta fat.
Not mine.
Not yours, a certain someone's.
Tell them how mine was.
Yours was good. Yours was really nice. It was actually super healthy looking fat.
Yeah.
Whereas
you're downplaying it. You loved my fat.
It was really good. Yeah, it was good. You can tell by the color. It sounds sick. I know, but you can tell by the color. So can we put her on blast? We'll put her on blast. So Arielle's friend who came, whatever. So Arielle's friend who came, her fat looked like croqueta fat. And so for those of you guys that don't know what a croqueta is, it's basically just like, it's this tiny little breaded, delicious Cuban, like ham cheese, just amazing treat. And you can tell when the patients had a lot of grease and fat in their diet, because that's where it's stored. And so the fat looks a little bit different. So just based on that, you can tell the composition of how it's going to be. So Arielle's was like a rich yellow fat. It was very healthy. Not so much on the other side.
But I will say, I feel like her fat really stayed. Like it's really good scaffolding.
It's good scaffold. Exactly. It builds really, really, really well. Yeah. And she'll be the first one to tell you that.
When would somebody be a candidate for something like a fat transfer versus Sculptra or filler?
Or Renuva, which we haven't talked about.
Rejuva-Life.
Yeah, Rejuva-Life.
As said friend calls it.
Calls it, yeah. Yeah. So Renuva is another option. And now even Alloclay, which is a third option. It's not really approved for the face. It's more for body, breast, etc. But These are all biostimulators versus a true fat graft. So if you think of the spectrum, you've got filler on one side, you've got fat on the other side, and then in the middle ground, you've got your biostimulators. So your biostimulators stimulate your body to create tissue. So what's there? You've got two options, your Renuva, which creates fat, and then you've got your collagen stimulators, which is your hyperdilute radius and your Sculptra. So think of it this way. If you have a large volume that needs to be filled, Sculptra is probably not going to do it because it's very, very subtle. If you have a larger amount of volume that needs to be filled, then you're going to need the fat grafting. Particularly if you're talking about sculpting, you have to think of this almost like you're sculpting the entire area. If you just have one spot, a little bit in the temple, a little bit in the submalar area through here, that is a great spot for Sculptra, just because you're softening that shadow. But if you're really hollow, you need a lot more volume. That's when you kind of start thinking about Renuva a little bit more. And then if you really need to rejuvenate the entire face, that's where fat comes in. Fat is really big. So the cell itself is a big, big molecule. So for fine lines, tear troughs, you can do nano fat, you can do micro fat. It helps, but you got to remember that it's a big, big molecule, and that's how you get lumpy bumpy.